listening to the Terrific Teacherpreneur, a podcast for teachers looking to grow a successful online business. Your host, Alex, was able to transform her Teachers Pay Teachers store from a small side hustle into a profitable full-time business. She now helps other teachers do the same. Listen along for actionable tips and helpful wisdom about business and marketing as a teacherpreneur. Here's your host, Alex.
Hello and welcome to the Terrific Teacherpreneur podcast. I'm really excited to share this episode with you. I just finished recording it with my guest, Savannah, and we talk about the kind of ups and downs of TPT, or as she refers to it, weathering the tides of entrepreneurship, which I love, because after selling for a couple of years, it's not always smooth sailing. That's the truth of it. Things can go up, things can go down. So we talk about that. And in this little two-part episode, we're going to be also talking about other topics. We touch on things like hiring. There's some stuff about spending money on certain things, diversifying. There's a lot covered here. I really, really hope you enjoy these episodes, though. Let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast, Savannah. I'm so excited that you are here. I thought you could start off by doing a little bit of an introduction about yourself, telling us a little bit about you and your business, because you have been on the podcast before, back in 2021. Give a little bit of an intro. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. I'm excited to be back. It's crazy because before we started recording, I was telling you, my everything is different now. So I guess I'll tell you a little bit about my business and just sort of the rundown of where I'm at now. Because when I first was last with you in 2021, I was working as a reading specialist inside of a school. And in June of this year, I did end up resigning. And now I'm doing this full time. So my Campbell Creates Readers is the name of the business that I run, and it's my full-time gig now. And it's really interesting that it's now my full-time gig, even though it's making me less money than it made me back in 2021 when I came on. I don't know if it was the COVID or the algorithm, but back in 2021, things were very different. And this year, I finally took that leap because I'm a mom and I want to be there with my daughter, and I felt like I was putting everybody else's child before my own child. And I decided this year that enough was enough. And so now I have the time for my daughter. So that's kind of where I'm at now. This is full time. Savannah does this full time now.
That's actually perfect, because the next question I was going to ask was just so we know things were growing really, really well back then, but tell us about how your business is going now. And as well as a little bit about the full-time stuff, the transition to that. Yeah. So tell us about, because we've heard the highs, the early days. But what's going on now? What's been going on recently?
I remember when I met with you the last time, I was so excited because it was the very first time that I had had a 4-figure day and a 4-figure month. And it was such a big deal for me. And I was on that high, I would say probably for a year. Things were going really, really well. And then just like everybody else, I started to notice that my sales were going down, and I kind of had that panic. And now that I am not teaching, it's become very real, because this is how I now provide for my family. This is what I do to provide for my family. So since then, since 2021, it's gone from being this fun, easy, I really didn't have to work very hard kind of side hustle. And now all of a sudden, I don't have a choice except to take it seriously as a business. And so it's no longer just TPT. I have to start incorporating other things in addition to it.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that next. I was going to say, so if things have gone a bit down on TPT, are you diversifying? How are you diversifying? What are you doing to navigate it? To navigate that kind of down, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not one of those people that complains every day about sales being down. I try really hard to focus on the things that I can change. And I will lament sometimes oh gosh, it stinks. But I try to spend the majority of my energy on things that I can do. And I know that TPT is going down for a couple of reasons. I don't think it's over. I've heard people say I'm done with TPT, but I do not think that that's the truth. I think any business, we have ebbs and we have flows, and it's going to be like this. So what I've been doing is making sure that I'm continuing to do my Teachers Pay Teachers. But then, like I had said, I've been diversifying. So I have a website. People also say blogging is dead, which I don't believe at all. In September, I got a Google Analytics email, and I had 100,000 Google searches in 28 days.
Oh,
or something like that. And it was nuts, my organic traffic. So the blog is still a big thing because you're able to dig deep into what's passionate. So you have your products, but then something like a blog is able to teach people, whatever topic you're into and how to use your product. So I'm into the science of reading community. So everything I do is tied in with that. So I've been blogging. I started a podcast of my own about the science of reading. What else have I done? Sometimes I'll do some freelancing work, and I'm also a co-founder and a co-host of a conference. And I know that sounds like I'm doing a lot, but keep in mind, I took it one thing at a time. I did not start this way. Amy Porterfield did not start as Amy Porterfield is today. We all kind of have to take a baby step. And that's what I did. I started with just TPT. And then I was like, okay, I've got this under my belt. I think I'm going to go ahead and start my blog. I didn't even have an email list for a few years. And so I just slowly started to incorporate things as they made sense for me, and making sure that I didn't just say yes to something to say yes to something, because that can kind of lead us down a different track, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It sounds like you've got a really good variety there. I actually wrote a blog post this morning. Like, I still think blogging is awesome. Like, I do it with Pinterest and it kind of works together. I think that you have to find what works for you, kind of thing. But yeah, I couldn't agree more on the blogging. But yeah, if you don't mind, this is not an official question, so I haven't prepared you for these extra little things. But I guess I was going to kind of ask, like, if you feel comfortable sharing, like, did personalized search affect you? Because when you're talking about things being down a little bit, when did things start to go down a bit? And like, when did all this happen? And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you could dive a bit more into that, that's okay.
I think I need to talk a little bit too about what I do. So I mentioned that I'm really big in the science of reading community. And I think that when I say really big, I don't mean I'm big. I mean, I'm big into it. But so I think what had gotten me was I was able to get into TPT with structured literacy stuff, I think kind of early, because science of reading, structured literacy, it wasn't really being talked about as much until during the pandemic and then after. So it was kind of twofold. I hit on a niche that hadn't been saturated yet, but very quickly got there. And then I honestly think personalized search helped me. Like, everybody was on Facebook complaining every day about how bad their sales were. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible for you. I'm so sorry. But mine were great. And then just out of nowhere, I would say the past 21 and 22 were very, very good, very high. 23 and 24, I have seen a slow decline in TPT sales, but that means that we have to figure out a way to bump it up elsewhere. If one area of our business is sort of floundering, we don't give up on it. We still work on it to be the best it can be, but we also have to be truthful to ourselves and think about if there's other things we can do.
Yeah. I was actually kind of wondering that might have been what it was, because I remember you had your Instagram account and you would, it was going really, really well. And I thought, I don't think enough people really understood all the science of reading stuff, and they were feeling really overwhelmed by it. And you were one of like those early pioneers. And it's like, it's great, but it can also be a bit of a burden too, because then it's hard to maintain that, that when you start off really high, you know what I mean? Like,
and I think so too, for me, it's just, gosh, this sounds so cheesy, but I am very grateful every day for whatever I have. I do not take it for granted. So people are like, oh my gosh, you have all these opportunities. And I'm like, I know how lucky I am that I've had some of these opportunities, and I am so incredibly grateful for it too, even for opportunities that don't always work out, which happens often too.
yeah. But you've worked hard too, so it's definitely not all luck or anything like that.
No, they say, what is it? Luck is where opportunity and hard work meet.
Yeah, you worked really, really hard. I think you worked really, really hard. But yeah, I had a similar thing. Personalized search didn't really negatively affect me, and I don't know what the roll of the dice was with that kind of stuff, but I think it hurt a lot more really older sellers, like really veteran sellers more. And you and I haven't been around since like 2012 or whatever, so maybe that's what it was. And I kind of benefited from that. And then so the year following that, when they turned it off, and this might have been what happened to you as well, is I think it kind of gave me a little bit of a boost above my normal growth. And so the next year it was a bit lower, and I was like, oh, some of the months have been lower. And I was like, oh, well, actually they're on track. They're just lower than this inflated year. And I don't know if that happened to you or not. Maybe.
I think that's what was happening to me, at least in 2021, is that I was like, oh, this is easy. I can do this. I'm going to be Deanna Jump. I am not by any means Deanna Jump.
I think any of us can get there. It's crazy.
One thing I will say too, though, about TPT, and then I hear a lot of people saying things like they're going to jump ship. And I just think that that's very much like an extreme view, because it's business. Sales go up and down in business, and it is just how it is. And we have to figure out how to weather the storm, or we do have to quit. Like, we have to change with business changing.
Yeah. Someone had actually asked on Facebook about mindset, and you've been kind of hinting at that. So I thought we could talk about that. They said, I would imagine in a 5-year span, they've had some ups and some downtimes. How do they handle their mindset and next steps in the business during those times when things aren't going well? So if you could tell, you sound like a really positive person. Like, you tell us a little bit about how you've dealt with those down times, that mindset stuff. And I think it's just helpful for people to hear the people that are really struggling and feeling really despondent, like, and they just feel like, I want to quit, or this is just a waste of time, or this is so hard, I just want to cry. Like, how are you navigating it mindset wise, not mental health wise,
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I do is I don't look at what other people are doing, even
Mm.
within my own niche. I don't go on Instagram and like search out as much as I used to because it's very easy to compare yourselves to others. And I got 10,000 followers within like a couple months or something like that. But then in the past 5 years, I'm not even at 50,000 yet. So I had this like exponential growth, and I see these people that started at the same time as me, and they have like 100,000 followers. And so I was like, you know what? We're not doing this. I'm not looking at what you were doing because it is taking me away from what I am doing. And I feel like every time we look at what somebody else is doing, we think I should be doing that. And it takes us away from the fact that there's something we should be doing that is ours and ours alone. Because anytime we try to act like someone else, try to look like somebody else, or post like somebody else, it's never going to work until you find out who you are and what really is like your special ingredient. So I kind of just try to keep blinders on, and I don't think about what other people are doing because I don't know, I compare myself to them, and that's the easiest way to get yourself knocked down.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the reasons I navigate things okay. Is I don't. Sometimes you have to, because you're like doing SEO and you're in search and like you can't help it kind of thing, or you're just on Instagram and things just pop up. But I try not to go out of my way, I think, to look, because if I think I did, I would. You play that game where you're like, oh, well, they started this many years ago, a similar time as me, but they are making way more money per month. Like, we could do that with any seller within your niche, outside your niche, whatever. You could say they've got the same amount of products, they've been selling as long, they do the same things. Like, it's, and then you could just start feeling really terrible. So I try not to. Yeah, I think I try that as well, and I think that helps definitely.
And I really believe that we will not all be successful in this, but there is room for all of us to be successful. Like, we will not all do it, but we could. Like, there's something about each of us that is special enough that the world needs to see it, I feel. And just don't look at what other people are doing is my number one piece of advice, because man, jealousy is nasty, because
Yeah.
I get it.
And I think as well, we look at things on a really surface level, like, oh, like looking at their Instagram posts, or like kind of looking at the storefront of their store, and you don't know, like, that's the tip of the iceberg. You have no idea what their situation is behind the scenes, like how many kids they have. Are they full-time TPT? Are they full-time teaching? Do they have like sick elderly parents?
Well, how many people are working for them too?
Yes, what bigger team do they have? Like, how many marketing platforms have they got going on? Have they got a big email list? And then you sit there thinking, I'm like a failure, or I'm bad at this, or like I'm worse in some way, and you have no idea the other kind of upper hand they have in different areas to you, or things that could
Yeah.
be slowing you down. Yeah.
Yeah. And I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, Alex. I had something to say.
I
No
wouldn't
more
stop
thoughts.
rambling. It's my fault.
I don't know what else to say. It's late here in Virginia. It's 7:15 and I'm an old lady. It's early morning for you, right? Like 11, 12?
It's 10 a.m. I'm great.
Oh, you got the whole day ahead. Sorry, Alex.
Okay. This is a good stopping point for us, though. So this could be the end of part one. So thank you, everyone, for listening this far. And in part two, we're going to pick up again. And I have a couple more questions from other sellers about not specifically the, ups and downs so much, more just like other things they want to know about, selling for the length of time you sold. Okay, so we're wrapping up part one. Definitely stay tuned, because in part two, Savannah and I are going to continue chatting, and we're going to touch on the things like hiring. It's her first experience hiring, as well as a few other things like what she was, recommending to spend money on and things like that. There's some really great stuff coming up. So stay tuned for the next episode. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think it's really nice just to hear from another seller, hearing how they've navigated things when things haven't always been great, because I think sometimes we're always hearing about like the sunshine and rainbows of when people are doing really well in TPT. But it's nice to hear that, we all have those kind of moments where sales can be down, things can be tricky and hard. And it's like, how do we navigate that? And it's just really nice to hear that perspective. So I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we'll see you in the next episode. Have a terrific day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Terrific Teacherpreneur. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate that effort. Come back for more actionable tips and helpful wisdom in the next episode with your host, Alex. Until then.